morning, good morning. Steady now. I'm Pádraig O'Keara. I'll chair this last session of the International Pitching Forum. We have 9 contestants in total this year, and 5 you heard yesterday, and 4 you'll hear this morning. Before we begin, I'll get the proverb out of the way early. And it is apposite, I think, and it goes like this. An té will call na mochoideach ed féitir collega hatra. I'll say it again in Garish. An té will call na mochoideach ed féitir collega hatra. Person with a reputation for early rising may stay in bed until midday because their reputation goes before them. Some of you might want to ponder on that one. Anyway, we're offering £6,000 for the winning pitch, which will be announced at tonight's prize giving. It's a really important part of the festival, and it's a really important skill. It's not always easy to stand in front of 4 people pitching for money, but to stand in front of more than 4 people from various companies and different perspectives and loads of experience is a very different thing to what you're used to. And it's very good to be able to see it done, and done well, as you will this morning. I should point out, in case you're sleepy and people have different dialects and spellings can vary, this is about pitching. There's another skill very important in this industry, which sounds very like pitching, but it's not. If you have improvement to make in that particular skill, you can go somewhere else. It's not going to be here this morning. Anyway, it is very important, and I know you'll be supportive to our listeners and to our pitchers this morning. Every pitch has 15 minutes, 10 to pitch, and 5 for questions from the panel, or from me, if I feel so inclined. As I say, they're from various funding organisations, and we're very happy to have their support and their presence. They're Bill McLeod from MG Alba, David Harron from BBC Scotland, Heidi McAlpin from Northern Ireland Screen, Justin Binding from BBC Northern Ireland, Cathy Fox from RTE, Montse Besada from Televisión de Galicia, Caroline Hitt from BBC Wales, Clínas Wynne from S4C, and my former colleague Prentice Níráine from TG Cahir. So time is precious. The first pitch this morning comes from Faction North and Northbridge Media, and it must have some sort of a history angle because its name is Past Sense. So Ian Henderson will tell you more.
Okay, hello Celtic Media Festival from the Past Sense team. My name is Ian Henderson, also known as Hendo, and I'm the series producer for Past Sense, working for Faction North. I'm a BAFTA New Talent Award-winning filmmaker, as well as Celtic Media Festival Award nominee back in 2016. I'm working with Faction North, which is an Edinburgh-based production company led by executive producer Grant Keir. And their series, their credits include the BAFTA-nominated archive documentary From Scotland with Love, as well as Prince of Muck. We are partnering with Northbridge Media, also an Edinburgh-based production company, led by John Rolfe, executive producer, former BBC Regions and Nations Comedy Commissioner, and now indie producer. John originated the idea, and he's got a background in history alongside his broadcast experience, like working with Tower of London and Royal Historic Palaces. So he's been a key voice in shaping the historical authenticity of the series. Together, we offer strong editorial storytelling with humour and factual filmmaking for this fresh and distinctive take on Celtic history. Our talent, this legend, Jamie MacDonald. Jamie MacDonald combines sharp humour with a genuine passion for history. And being blind, he brings a unique sensory perspective to storytelling. And the series explores the past through the senses. My background working with Jamie, we worked together over 4 series of Edinburgh Unlocked, the BBC's coverage of the Edinburgh festivals and Fringe. And we made exciting VT packs that blended accessibility with humour and bold storytelling, all qualities that sit right at the heart of Past Sense. Past Sense is a 6x30 minute returning, hopefully, history series, and it explores the Celtic past through touch, taste, smell, and sound. So the idea really does come from Jamie's perspective as a blind presenter and comedian. Therefore, instead of treating history as something dusty or distant, we really put audiences right inside lived experiences. So while it's rooted in Jamie's sensory perspective, it's also cinematic, immersive, and richly atmospheric for sighted audiences. So that's ranging from dramatic landscapes to fire festivals and medieval feasts. What makes the format truly distinctive is that it combines humour with overlooked stories, particularly around disability and the Celtic nations, in a way that feels fresh, accessible, and highly entertaining. So we've got a wee flavour of past tense here in this taster tape.
If you think you know the Celtic past, close your eyes, open your senses. You haven't experienced it yet. Hi, I'm Jamie MacDonald and I am a Grierson Award-winning documentary presenter, stand-up comedian, voice-over artist. I've got degrees in law and ancient history from a couple of decent unis, but I'm modest about that. And I'm also blind. I experience places in a very, very different way to sighted people. Yeah, you know those guys. So where other historical presenters are admiring turrets and castles and the size of battlefields and stains and stained glass windows, I'm asking the questions history usually leaves out. What scratch? What clanged? Why did it stink? You know, why does so much of the past taste suspiciously unpleasant? Because, well, history doesn't just look different, it felt different. It tasted different, it sounded different, it even smelled different. Just take these wee cubes, which contain the concentrated smells of history developed by a proper museum expert. Tiny little box for anybody that can't see. Pull this off and then sniff. Ah! That was a surprise, that's disgusting. What is it?
Beef.
Beef? That's woody.
Old Smithy.
Old Smithy? Yeah, very nice. That was actually quite pleasant. You just know if it's the last one, it's going to be something especially minging. Take that back. What's that, fish? Is that fish?
Fish market.
That's disgusting. In other words, we're in the Celtic past. Oh, that's cold. I mean, good Lord, this is not armour, this is wearable regret. But if you were alive 500 years ago, you'd think nothing about putting this on, marching up a hill under attack. Yeah, history was heavy. To the victors, the spoils. Skål. Brings us on to taste, right? Mead. Oh, that's quite nice, actually. Kind of sweet, fermented, and just enough of a kick to make a Viking blood feud sound like a cracking idea. What are you looking at, Morton? Across past tense, every episode uses taste, touch, smell and sound to transport us into the living worlds of the Celtic nations. The smoke and stories of Viking halls, the clang of medieval armour and banquet success, the coal, the corsets, the chemical cures of Victorian progress, the bathhouses and bodily horrors of Roman occupation, particular favourite of mine, the cordite and rationing and sensory shock of wartime. And along the way, I'll uncover the untold stories of blind and disabled people who have always been a part of that history, even if that history has forgotten to mention them. As someone who's navigated the world using senses other than sight, I know that often the things you feel are the things you remember the most.
Past sense. Celtic history like you've never seen it before.
Thank you very much. So, cheers, Jamie. Across the series, Jamie will be joined by guests, historians and experts who will help bring the Celtic past to life. So we're going to focus on people like Ruth Tolkien, who is a Cornish blind historical fencer and descendant of J.R.R. Tolkien. Kat Irvin from Edinburgh's Surgeon Hall Museum. Now she's got a weird job. She's a human remains conservator. So she pickles body parts. So you can only imagine what will happen in that episode. And also an award-winning medical historian, Dr. Lindsay Fitzharris. So the guests are not just talking heads. They actively experience the history alongside Jamie. So whether that's handling medieval weaponry, exploring Victorian cures, or uncovering overlooked stories around disability and identity in the past. The format is designed to be genuinely surprising, highly repeatable, and scalable, and every episode is built around taste, touch, and smell as a way into the past. So one thing we think is really exciting about Past Sense is that it naturally extends beyond traditional linear television. So we'll be creating a lot of strong short-form moments that work brilliantly online. For example, Jamie tasting Roman garum, getting hands-on with Viking swords, or reacting to historical smells. But there's real potential for social clips, behind-the-scenes content, and audience-facing digital moments that will broaden reach and bring younger audiences into history content. So we've seen how brands like Time Team and The Rest is History build massive audiences online. Rest is History has got 11 million monthly listeners, apparently, and 50% of them are under 35. So we think that Past Sense has the same crossover potential. Now, the series is designed to be ambitious editorially, but achievable practically. So with strong access, engaging contributors, archive, and presenter-led storytelling rather than expensive reconstruction. So the budget we see landing somewhere in the regions of £60,000 to £140,000 per hour, depending on the final broadcaster ambition, co-production structure, or international scope. So, join us in Past Sense, Celtic history, like you've never seen it before. Basically, I'm going to take some questions, but I've got something. If you want to have one of these wee scent cubes, so you can close your eyes, have a sniff, and experience some history for yourself. But there's a few. Feel free to pass. I took the most minging ones out. Trust me.
Okay. While they're doing that, I'll ask you a question. And these people are all alert and wide awake, and there's no doubt whatever that they're going to be shocked by some of the sense that they're being offered. This is a project for Scotland, is it? It's going to be located in Scotland, film and location in Scotland.
I think it can be located around the Celtic nations, really. I don't think it's just Scotland. I think there's a lot of potential to go around the nations.
Okay, guys, those of you that have a good nose for commissions, now is the time to ask a question. Bill.
Thanks very much. I'm Bill from MG Oliver. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the six-parter would be structured or organised? What's every episode? What's each of the episodes going to tackle?
So basically, I don't know if you've seen the pitch decks as well in advance, but we've got history around the war and looking at the wars and bringing in the history from that. We're looking back at Victorian cures. I don't have the full list here to hand, so if I could refer to the document, but I think, there's a strong range that really takes you around the different parts of history that are relevant.
I'm David Harn from BBC Scotland. That's a brilliant pitch, really good team as well, and Jamie's really appealing. Obviously comes at it from a totally different perspective. The thing that I kind of wondered, slightly picking up on Porry's question a little bit, is we've seen quite a lot of sort of things like this which have sort of tried to kind of blend the kind of history across kind of Celtic nations. And I'd just be interested in how you kind of make it coherent for the audience and kind of each. Presumably your aspiration is for it to play in more than one territory, or you would just make it the history of that one particular country. And it's how you make that kind of coherent for you know, the audiences like across the different Celtic nations were it to play there, you know, because, you know, we've often felt that people probably gravitate more towards the history of their own country than the notion of a sort of pan-Celtic history.
Yeah, so you've talked about potentially like localising it and just focusing on Scotland and doing Scottish?
No, just as a way of kind of hooking in an audience that you know, are obviously going to be, you know, naturally going to be more interested in the history of their own country than, you know, so a Scottish audience is inevitably going to be more interested in that than maybe like stories from further afield.
Well, I think like one thing that's strong for us is Jamie. Like he's the guy for the job. He's really kind of likeable and he's funny and he can. I think if I was watching him, I've got a real passion for like working with Jamie, having worked with him a few times, and like since we've been developing this, and I've liked history in school, but I never like, I've been listening to podcasts on history every night, like thinking about it, and I just feel like seeing Jamie going wherever he took you, I think he would take an audience with him, sort of thing, you know.
Okay, thanks.
So, I think it's interesting.
I wonder which would be the next steps if you succeed in getting this fund for development, which is the idea. Just how would you invest that money?
I think it's important for us to continue to do the research and create the strongest materials possible to help us with the pitch. I think we could be going and meeting folks, taking the pitch to different broadcasters, and I just think it's a chance for us to really maybe do some more stuff with Jamie, and it would be really helpful for us at this stage to get it to the next stage, really.
Well, you have an original approach to history, and I get that would be a good chance to try to work on getting co-producers on board, because I think the Celtic link could help for that.
If we could meet up with local producers in different areas and then have that sort of connection, that would really help us when we're being able to produce the show. But yeah, it's all possible, I think.
Okay, thanks very much and good luck with the project.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
I heard, of course, the prize will be announced at this afternoon's prize-giving awards, not tonight, so stick around for that. The next pitch comes from the aptly named Innocent Film Company. It deals with judicial matters, as the title suggests. It says it's innocent trial and error. So to tell you all about that, please welcome Hannah Curry and Sandra Leeming.
Good morning, Celtic Media Festival. You may recognise me from last year. I pitched this project last year. I'm back. And I'm back because I truly believe in the film, and we return stronger than ever, having taken on board feedback from judges, audience, attached a renowned executive producer, and developed a creative concept of how we best tell the stories of victims of miscarriage of justice. I did say I'm the director of the project. I'm here with my producer, Sandra Leeming, and we have Scott Jenkins, who is the CEO of the Miscarriage of Justice organisation, and besides him, Patrick Maguire, who is a Mojo trustee and member of the exonerated Maguire 7 family. Patrick was arrested aged 13 along with 6 members of his family. Patrick and Scott, do you want to put your hands up so people can see you? Thank you. So I want to start first by stressing the urgency of the issue. Some of the worst miscarriages of justice in our nation's history remain uncorrected, and people are living whole lives marred by wrongful convictions. This is not a tale of some distant experience that happens to other people. Miscarriages of justice are more common than you think. And the reality of crimes happening does not make this okay. It's not just an injustice to the victims, it's an injustice to the people serving someone else's time. Mojo in Glasgow, Miscarriage of Justice Organisation, Mojo for short, receive upwards of 400 applications a year, but typically take on just 10 cases, those with a legitimate claim to factual innocence. Any person who has the misfortune to find themselves in the dock for a crime they did not commit may never achieve access to justice under the current system. And this happens because there's a lowering rate of referrals to the appeals court, a 98% failure rate of those referrals. And this is paired with a vast inequality between prosecution and defence, and a legal aid system in deep crisis, which results in the catastrophic situation of mistakes happening and then going uncorrected for decades. In the case of Mojo's longest-standing client, Davy, 48 years and counting. Our film seeks to humanise people at the heart of the worst ongoing miscarriages of justice in this land we call home. And we hope to create enough shockwaves and genuine empathy to increase demand for the reform of our badly broken justice system. I'm going to play a trailer. I just want to caveat that by saying this is edited using archive material and early development footage, so it's not a proof of concept that will follow further down the line. It just provides context for the story and why we're telling it.
I've been in prison 15 years for something I didn't do, something I didn't know anything about. Justice! I don't think them people in there have got the intelligence nor the honesty to spell the word, never mind dispense it.
Sam Hallam lost 7 years of his life to what his lawyers called a serious miscarriage of justice.
Sam was convicted of murder in a gang fight in East London in 2004.
Peter Sullivan now has the unenviable title as the victim of the longest miscarriage of justice for a serving prisoner in British history.
In the light of that fresh evidence, we quash the conviction.
We still have telephone boxes in the street back then. We don't have them anymore, it's all mobile phones. He's got an awful lot that he's got to learn.
Nothing was done for Sam, and I've always said that, and that hurts. I'm his mum, but it's like when I look at my other children as well, what they've gone through. It rips the whole family apart.
And all this time, the person who really did this horrific crime has been at large. And this means that it's not just me who has been denied justice, it is the victim.
Is anyone ever going to take responsibility?
It's a lonely place being a victim of miscarriage of justice. We do our best to put broken people back together again.
I was 17 years old. 17 of us. And it's changed my life forever.
What age are you now?
I'm 63, going on 64. And this has been with me every day since June 78. That's my brother Neil getting married, and my nephews. That's me. Still can't put a tie on.
Did you ever get married?
No. Wouldn't get married, no, because I'm thinking too much about this, no, and letting other people see you suffering like this. I wouldn't put anybody through this.
Look, Missy, it's 40 years of this man's life, and then you just worry yourself sick if it doesn't go our way. Because we've got it, we're the ones that have to pick them up, we're the ones that get through it with them. So the truth, I'm shitting myself. That is the truth.
Oh, this week's been hellish. For Friday, I've watched every second, every minute, every hour. I'm churning inside out now. This is what it's all about. Hopefully I can get some good news for a change.
It looks like by the cover letter that they're not going to be sending it, I'm afraid, David. For the reasons. The Commission does not believe that a miscarriage of justice may occur in the applicant's case, or that it would be in the interest of justice to refer the case to the High Court unless he brings any new matters to the attention of the Commission. The Commission is unlikely to accept the case for a Stage 2 review.
Well.
So I'm sorry, David.
I know I just couldn't go for another 20 years of this, no.
Something needs to change. Something seriously needs to change.
Thank you so much. With exclusive access to Mojo and their clients, this film invites victims of miscarriage of justice to retell their stories in the pursuit of truth. Stories that have, until now, been warped and twisted by a flawed system. Unveiling details of what happened with their case, supported by factual evidence from Mojo, enables audiences to judge for themselves whether a miscarriage of justice has taken place. And in addition to detailing their ordeal, we'll invite contributors to reflect on the sliding doors moments that never happened, of the life they lost to injustice. That moment that changed their life forever, if that hadn't happened, what might life have looked like? The weddings, the kids, the colleagues, the family holidays. These imagined moments will be cinematically recreated, bringing our audience closer to victims of miscarriage of justice and allowing them to see themselves and their families and our characters on screen. We believe this will appeal to audiences nationwide, but looking to the enormous success of Glasgow's Everybody to Kenmure Street, which was a similar grassroots campaign, international audiences are a very real possibility and desire too. I'll pass over to Sandra now. Thank you.
So Mojo is a unique victim support organisation based in Glasgow, founded by the late Paddy Joe Hill. Its purpose is to assist other people with resolving or assist other people who found themselves in the same position as Joe had. He was one of the 6 innocent men who was wrongly convicted in 1975 of the Birmingham pub bombings. Mojo is led by Scott Jenkins, and as we said, there's also a board of trustees on which Patrick Maguire sits. Mojo is, and this is a very important point, Mojo is partly staffed by trainee student lawyers and social workers, and the aim is that the organization hopes to equip them with the necessary training to identify, to prevent, and stop mistakes that underpin so many of the miscarriages of justice that we are seeing today. We have a signed access agreement with Mojo for feature doc and a broadcast cut down, and we also have the right to refuse any other offers of media interest that they might receive. Working closely with Mojo, we've identified and signed up several of their clients, one of whom is Davey, as you've seen, but our research continues because we need to find voices that speak to more current cases. We're also working closely with Mojo's support team to develop a code of conduct to best manage the duty of care, because these are people who have suffered enormous difficult situations and trauma, and it's down to us to navigate them through the filming process. We've pulled together a superb team. Obviously, we've got Hannah. She's been working with Mojo for the past few years to develop the story. She's won multiple awards and nominations, including a BAFTA, BAFTA Scotland, RTS Scotland, Grierson, and the Celtic Media Festival nomination. She spent a great deal of time filming in prisons, so she has trauma-informed approach to filming sensitive issues such as this. Late last year, she was also part of the BFI London Film Network cohort, and this is Hannah's debut film, feature doc. I have 15, 20 years of working specifically on feature docs, most of which have had an impact campaign attached to them, and this is very much the model we intend to replicate with this film. It's not just a film. We don't want to see audiences just go to the cinema and watch it. We want them to be part of the campaign that really results in a change to how the justice system works. We have on board exec producer Christopher Hurd, a leading figure in the UK independent documentary film making. So can I give you that? He's the founder of Dartmouth Films, which pioneered new ways of funding, producing, distributing documentaries in the UK, as well as promoting the work of new and emerging filmmakers. He has also not just professionally made films that are about human rights issues and justice issues, but he is in fact, as a person, very aligned with the causes. Our cinematographer is the Scottish-based Thomas Hogben, and he's worked on shorts and features, and his work has been included in prestigious film festivals such as Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Aesthetica. And, oh. All right.
Their justice, I think we need to give them time to ask you a question or two.
No problem, sorry guys.
Thank you both. Okay, have you any questions for our pictures panel? Princess.
Well done. It's a really important story and a really, really strong pitch. One question, you referenced that you hope to get live stories. Maybe to elaborate on that, I think it's important that we do follow a story as it unfolds and all of the attention that would hopefully get. That's question number one. Question number two is, how really will you attract audiences outside of the jurisdiction with a different appeal system, as the Republic of Ireland is quite different to the British system? And would there be scope to include, again, live stories from different jurisdictions?
So in terms of live stories, they would fall under the jurisdiction of the CCRC and the SCCRC, or the Scottish and English legal system. But that's not to say that there aren't similarities in those stories across jurisdictions in separate nations, and huge similarities with the American justice system as well. Justice systems that pride themselves on being the best in the world, but have failings that are replicated kind of across the board internationally. So I think that there's definitely appeal to those audiences, to those victims of miscarriage of justice, to those victims of crime that have been failed as well. And in terms of the live story, I'm really, really keen to work with, miscarriages of justice happen historically, and there is a shocking story in the people who have waited so long to achieve justice and may never achieve justice, but they are still happening. So it's very, very important to me, as I still consider myself a young woman with a young son, to show that that's happening now. So we're actively, part of this fund would be used as that in that active casting process. We're working with Mojo, but we're also working with the organisations that they are connected to throughout the UK, including JENGBA, which is Joint Enterprise Not Guilty by Association, which is one of the earlier boys you saw on the slide, Jordan, was convicted under that. So there are droves of young people in prison or recently released who still don't have access to that justice. So I don't anticipate that being difficult, but for me it's about finding the right person to represent the story as a whole and somebody that the audience are going to fall in love with.
Thank you. I think time is up. So
okay,
good luck with the project. Well done. Our third pitch this morning is a joint venture between Cosmic Cat and Hopscotch Films, and it has to do with pitches of a different kind. It's titled George Connolly, Far from the Madding Crowd, and here to tell you about it are first John Archer, and after him, Jed Fitzsimons.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. Jed had a good practice yesterday. I didn't. I'm John Archer from Hopscotch Films. I've been working in film and television for over 50 years. And Hopscotch, we make stories from Scotland for the world. This year we've had premieres in Sundance, Glasgow, Berlin, Cannes, and Carmar, Sheffield, Karlovy and Edinburgh, and Telluride. And Jed and I have worked together a lot in distribution. A couple of years ago, we were distributing the film about Jenny Godley, Janie, and Jed latched onto the story of the Willy Wonka chocolate experience, and I saw he was a brilliant producer. That film is still to come out, but is complete, ready to go. And over the past 7 years, Jed has been working on a story with George Connolly. I am not a football fan, but this is a great human story. And Jed is a great director. So, Jed, please tell us more.
Thanks very much, John. You certainly know how to make a man blush. 254 appearances, 7 league titles, 5 Scottish Cups, 3 League Cups, 1 Player of the Year award, 1 World Cup qualification, and 1 European Cup final. In 1975, at the height of his career, with the world at his feet, a Celtic icon suddenly and inexplicably just disappeared, leaving a question in the minds of generations of Celtic fans. Whatever happened to George Connolly? 50 years later, I found him, living quietly in rural Scotland, sober, and for the first time, ready to tell his story.
Celtic got rid of the danger. Rangers were on the verge of another blunder. Connolly made it 3-0.
Support and a shot across the goal and a goal to Celtic in the very first minute.
I just thought, this is extraordinary. This guy's it, is everything.
You can imagine the young boy going into that environment at Celtic Park with famous iconic names.
Billy was there, Hill was there, Bobby Murdoch was there, Jinky was there, Buddy Lance was there, Willie McCarry, Davy Hay, Danny McRae, and Kenny Dalglish.
Somebody will have to invent a position this kid can't play. Connolly is perhaps the greatest discovery ever made by Celtic since the war.
Wow. This is a kid that scores in Scottish Cup finals.
George Connolly makes it 6-1.
This is a kid that dominates European Cup semi-finals.
What a chance for Connolly to go!
This is a kid that plays in a European Cup final.
He was a star-blessed, iconic figure who suddenly disappeared.
People often ask, whatever happened to George Connolly? Sometimes it can be hard to piece it all back together. Why would somebody with the world at his feet just walk away from it all? In life, there's never a simple answer. But if you can spare me some time, I'll tell you what happened.
So what do we have? Well, firstly, we have urgency. George would be the first person to tell you that he himself is approaching extra time. And that urgency has galvanized me to ensure that we preserve his story before it's too late. So for the last few years, I've gone around the country collecting incredible interviews with George, with his beautiful family, with the legends who were the witnesses of the time. You might have heard Archie McPherson's voice in there, amongst others. His teammates. We have interviews with his best pal, Davy Hay, who was like a brother to George through the most difficult times. With a Lisbon Lion, Jim Craig, that you saw in there, and with others like legendary Celtic and Manchester United player Lou McCarry. Incidentally, when I interviewed Lou, he said something that struck me. He said, in some ways, George and I are still in the same team. And I asked him what he meant by that. And he said, well, we're both parents who've both lost children. And that opened up an entirely new and emotional angle for this film. We also have archive. When we were looking for George, we also unearthed an extraordinary unseen archive shot by the fans in the 60s and the 70s. who had access all areas to Celtic Park, the tunnel, the dugout, the stand, the gantry, the supporters' buses, the turnstiles, and stadiums all over the country. 128 8mm reels, ranging from 3 minutes to half an hour. It's a time machine that we will use to go back with George to his most vulnerable moments and his greatest highs. I also believe that we have the best possible team for this game. We have myself, he says modestly, who's like the midfield general. I'm the guy who unrelentingly pushes this project forward. 7 years, and I'm still going. We have in goals John Archer, which is a sentence that's never been said before and won't ever be said again. John, as the producer, is going to make sure that we don't leak money. We have our own star striker in the form of Barry McKenna, a rock star from the rock band Twin Atlantic, who is lined up to compose a cinematic score. And in some ways, we have our own Jock Stein in the form of Peter Mullen, who has just been appointed or attached to the project as exec producer. But crucially, we have an audience. There's approximately 12 million Celtic fans worldwide. A significant proportion of those fans want to know what happened to their hero. And what's key in all of this is that we have direct access to that fan base. Over the past year, I've developed partnerships with fan media. And in a previous iteration of this film, we would maybe have partnered with Celtic Football Club themselves. But time seems to have moved on. So we have partnerships with a Celtic State of Mind and various other Celtic fan platforms who bring in roughly about 6 million listeners and viewers per month. That's going to be a route direct to the audience. So what do we need? Right, well, we need money and we need partnerships. On Tuesday, we launched a crowdfunder, the object of which was to try and generate around 100 grand from the Celtic fans. And if you just go into the crowdfunder now, you'll see the kinds of comments and the kinds of contributions that the fans are giving us. It's really, really encouraging. It's a beautiful thing. There's an outpouring of love for George that's happening right now. We're looking for broadcasters who can match that. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to shoot reconstruction scenes. In the absence of archive in certain areas of George's life, we are going to shoot dreamlike reconstruction scenes. In the film, George returns to the old Celtic Park, the old Oval Stadium, that has been so forgotten by time that woodland is growing up through the stands. Now, this is an actual place in Glasgow. It's Cathkin Park, and that's what's happened to the place. So George goes there to visit the 3 ghosts of George Connolly, the kid who left the sticks to go to the big smoke, the iconic footballer, and the addict who threw it all away. By the end of the film, he will close the door figuratively and literally on his past to re-emerge up the tunnel in present-day Celtic Park to finally be reunited with his adoring fans. We also need to secure broadcast archive for George's key games. And we also need to get Barry McKenna, that rock star I mentioned, to start work on a cinematic score. All of this will bring us to a rough cut by the end of 2026 so that we can have a world premiere in Glasgow at the turn of the year. So, I mean, I'm really, really excited by this project. It's the most positive I've felt about it over the 7 years. I hope that you guys feel the same way in some way. I'm looking forward to your questions, and hopefully we can chat about it after today's event. Thanks very much.
Okay, so the question is, what happened to George Connolly?
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for a brilliant pitch. You know, you've mentioned you've obviously got a huge die-hard audience for this documentary, but you know the great sport documentaries explore themes that transcend sport. You know, how would you see that this reaching an audience beyond Celtic, and then you know some of the themes that are more universal?
Yeah, we've thought a lot about this. I mean, my argument has always been that this is a film about men's mental health by proxy or by stealth. And so that our access, our entry point is the Celtic fan base. Of course it is. But my own experience as an impact producer has always been about trying to use films to bring about some form of positive social change. And so we can relate it to this very easily. We have got the UK's foremost addiction charity in support of this as well. And, you know, that's our plan. We don't want to expose George himself too much in the release of this. We're planning a theatrical release, and that will be something that will also start the conversation around men's mental health. You've got a guy in his 70s who is talking very candidly about his own mental health at a time when the vocabulary never really existed in the 70s for him. And I think that's really, really powerful, because it can be, I choose my words pretty carefully here, but I think the open conversation about men's mental health, especially in younger groups of men, it can be quite clickbaity and a wee bit performative. And I think there's something quite powerful about this old guy who's saying something that he has never ever said in his life, which is, you know, it's okay to not be okay. So that's our attitude. And as an impact producer, we know how we're going to start to have those conversations with a broader audience. But for the first part of the journey, we need to land these Celtic fans. And if you, like I said, if you go into the crowdfunding, you'll see this huge outpouring of love for them. So we're really impressed. Incidentally, I should say, in about the first 24, 48 hours, we've raised about 15 grand already. So we're quite happy about the direction of travel.
I have a question. The world is full of sports stars, but the duty of care of their employers after they leave the scene seems to be not so much investigated. How does Celtic Football Club come out of this episode?
So George is quite an old-fashioned guy. He never speaks badly about anybody in the film, but it's in there in the subtext. He has got a lot of reasons to be pissed off, but he was also really, really complimentary about Celtic. Jock Stein was one of the most terrifying managers in football history. Jimmy Johnson was 5 feet high, and he would have him by the throat in the dressing room for the kind of stuff that he pulled. But with George, who's 6'5", he saw vulnerability in George Connolly, to the point where Jock Stein actually visited his home address. He chapped his door to check if he was all right. This happened several times. So Jock Stein becomes a father figure to George Connolly, unlike that kind of terrifying manager that we know him as. There was a softer side to Jock Stein, and of course, George talks about that a lot. He refers to him as a father figure. He refers to Davy Hay as a brother. These are men looking after other men at a time when they never had the vocabulary to do so. So I think Celtic actually come across quite well in it. Although George ultimately was failed by everybody, it was a different time.
Okay, then. Good luck with the project, and thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Our fourth and final project this morning is titled My Name is Hazel and deals with the murky world of crime. To reveal more, please welcome Roisin O'Dea and Kenny McGillifaric.
Imagine everywhere you go, you have to carry a padlock with you, just to feel safe. Imagine bolting doors behind you because you're in fear that the person who raped you will find you again. And that's the reality of Hazel. She still carries a padlock with her every day. But despite all of that, it's amazing what she's achieved and the beautiful family that she's created.
Hazel is a mother. She's a wife. She's a daughter. She's an advocate. She's a survivor of a violent sexual assault who was drawn into one of the world's biggest criminal investigations, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. But how do you live your life and move through the world when the world knows you only as a victim with a famous suspect?
I had bolts put on to my bedroom door, and I take my son out of sleep every night I put him into bed beside me and bolted us into the house, or into my bedroom. I would definitely sleep better at night if I knew that there was no person like him that walking around, but particularly for me, that he wasn't. Yeah. I find it, again, makes my world smaller. He makes my world smaller. And then I get angry. Then I'm like, he's still controlling my life. And I fucking hate that.
This hour-long documentary tells the story of an Irish woman caught up in the Madeleine McCann case, fighting to reclaim her identity. It's a really personal one for me. I was a researcher on The Late Late Show for many years, and one story stuck with me above any other, the story of Hazel Behan. I first met Hazel when she appeared on the show back in 2015. She was talking about a violent rape she endured in Portugal years earlier. It was a brave and moving interview. She spoke about the details of the graphic rape. It was shocking, and Hazel's story never left me. Fast forward to 2020 and an incredible turn of events. Another shocking rape in Portugal was in the news. My blood ran cold as I realised the rape happened the year after Hazel was attacked, only half an hour up the road in Portugal. The methods used were similar to what happened to Hazel, methods that Hazel had actually spoken about on The Late Late Show. The man in jail for that rape was Christian Bruckner. And the reason that rape was all over the media, and the reason he was all over the media, is that German police had publicly revealed him as the prime suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. When Hazel Behan saw these reports, she physically got sick. She believed he was the same man who raped her all those years ago. It's still mad to me, the thought of her telling the story on The Late Late in 2015 with no investigation, no suspect, and then only a few short years later, there's a suspect for her attack, a famous one, the suspect in the world's largest missing child investigation, and she has to face the media intrusion and avalanche of press that comes with that. My Name is Hazel is the story of a search for accountability and a fight for identity, and we believe we're the people to tell it.
So it's Misha Kenny McIlafodrick of Fode Films, and this is Roisin Nuddy. We've worked together for years in RTE, and finally we are collaborating in the independent sector. As an award-winning director who self-shoots, that allows me to create a level of intimacy and trust that goes far deeper than what a traditional crew can get you. And that's the approach that I take with all my projects, including Laura Brennan, This Is Me, a film about a girl who advocated passionately about the HPV vaccine. The story of a girl, the story of the reality of a girl unvaccinated. And she trusted me with her story, up until her last breath and beyond.
Kenny and I have been telling stories for 20 years, as well as working as a researcher and then executive producer on The Late Late Show. I also produced an award-winning documentary on One about Irish whistleblower Maureen Carney, another story about a strong woman caught up in events bigger than her.
So what will we see? We meet Hazel at a time of enormous change, and we'll be there with her every step of the way, capturing every high and every low. We see her building AISHT, the organisation she founded to support survivors of sexual assault. We see her meeting up with those survivors in intimate settings and taking late-night phone calls from women in crisis, listening, advising, and supporting those when they need her most. We see the impact of trauma on Hazel as she navigates everyday life in the complexities of PTSD and the way it continues to shape her world. We follow Hazel's campaign to change the law to support survivors from having their most private and vulnerable conversations held against them in court. Recently, Hazel also lost her father. And in this film, we see her honour his final request to keep fighting.
Hazel's search for justice is threaded throughout with conversations with her passionate advocate, lawyer Dara Mackin of Phoenix Law. He believes the initial investigation into Hazel's rape in Portugal was one of the worst he has seen. As she searches for accountability, Hazel endures a humiliating trial in Germany in 2024, and she reveals her devastation at Bruckner's sensational acquittal for her rape. The verdict is widely criticised, and a retrial has been recommended for next year. Hazel says she can't face the trauma again, but as a witness in this case, she has no choice. In a powerful act of defiance, Hazel is returning to Portugal to retrace the steps of the woman she was before. We have Hazel's trust to follow her there and follow this story, which is still unfolding, and we're excited to see where it takes us.
So, the visual approach. This film is told from 3 unique perspectives. The first, that of Hazel's. There's no formal interviews, no structural sit-down interviews. Instead, handheld filming, natural light, and quiet observations will allow us to stay connected to Hazel along this journey. However, when we enter the legal process, the visual language changes. We see a system that is more rigid, more colder, and more distant, because that's ultimately how Hazel sees it. The second perspective is that of the world's. We use archive here to show how the media can be so unforgiving, so loud and relentless. This fragmented approach allows us to cut through the noise, and it offers a glimpse into what identity means to Hazel. The third perspective is that of the families, her husband and her 3 children. By giving them the tools, by giving them a camcorder, we gain access to moments that a film crew could never get. It allows us to include Hazel's children as well, but also keeping their privacy and identities protected.
Hazel's lived experience of having her counselling notes used against her by the defence in her own trial has motivated her to campaign against this. Just a little bit of context. If you were raped in Ireland today, or your sister, or your daughter, or your brother, your counselling notes from your whole life would be used against you by the defence in your trial. Naturally, this has a chilling effect on survivors, and it's stopping some people going to therapy or editing themselves in therapy. We can make survivors' voices heard in this film, and this story needs to be told.
The world knows the headlines. Now it's time to know the woman behind them.
What happened doesn't stay in the past. It shows up in your body, in the way your heart races at something small. It shows up in your mind, in the thoughts you can't quiet, the memories that don't ask permission. It shows up in your sleep, in your relationships, in the fear, the hypervigilance, the constant scanning for danger. It changes how you move through the world.
To the best of my knowledge, I am being subpoenaed to testify in court.
How are you? I don't think I can remember in recent times as bad an investigation as this one.
Very difficult to truly understand what it's like to be a stranger in your own body. It's my time to be able to be Hazel. Yeah. I mean, I'm not the Irish girl raped by Madeleine McCann suspect. My name is Hazel Bean.
Thank you very much. We'll open it up to questions.
Well done, Gurmagi. Questions from our panel? I'll start with a question. That's an awful lot for one work. Is this a series?
It could possibly be, but at the moment we're looking at a 1 hour, and it's Hazel's story we're telling. We're telling the story of a woman who has been through all this, who's still standing, a woman who is warm and loving and funny and flawed and traumatized, and she's a really amazing person to be around. So it is a lot, and we'll thread that through, but it's Hazel's story ultimately, and that's at the heart of this film.
Don't make me sing a song.
How much of the, Heidi from Northern Ireland Screen, how much of the Christian Bruckner element is front and centre because of his connection with Madeleine McCann, but as I understand it, he has not been convicted of that, and possibly he isn't.
Absolutely, and this is not a film about who did it. He has always denied any involvement in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann or in Hazel's attack, so we're not trying to prove or find out who did that. But he is a suspect, he is a convicted child abuser, and he is also a convicted rapist. But again, this is not about him. It just has had enormous impact on Hazel's life, the fact that the suspect is famous, the fact that the media descended on her home in Mullingar in 2020, because any connection with the Madeleine McCann case just sets off a fire, a frenzy. And it also meant that her trial in Germany was tried with 4 other trials when he was acquitted. And, you know, that trial has been, is part of the story because a retrial has been recommended. That the acquittal is seen as that it won't stand. It's not about that, it's about a woman's experience and what it's like to live through 20 years of that and still have no justice.
It's very powerful and it's very sad as well.
It is very sad, yeah. But she's brilliant and warm, and we love spending time with her. And actually, on camera, she just is so giving. So I think people will root for Hazel, and I find it myself really inspiring how she goes about her life.
Yeah, just while I have the microphone as well. I mean, the Pellico case as well in France has opened this all up, and is it as much about the bigger story and women and safety of women today?
Yeah, absolutely. Like when we're developing this documentary, Hazel has been campaigning on the counselling notes issue, and she's brought that front and centre. But even like just in the last few months, we've seen the story out in UCD with the WhatsApp groups and that. We've seen the parades in Galway from my neck of the woods. Like rape culture, we like to think that, you know, we sorted that out. We've talked about that. It's still a really big issue, and we need survivor stories from now, from today. We need to hear from them. Like the Lavinia Kerwicks of the past. They were so moving to me when I was growing up, but now we need to keep telling survivors' stories. They need to be heard.
Yeah, I'll just add to that.
Yeah.
Hazel, she's an amazing woman, and she believes in what she stands for. Like, she lived this traumatic event. It's not like she doesn't know what she's talking about. And she not only stands and is able to talk on her own behalf, but she stands for so many women out there and men, and she's nothing to gain from this other than for her to find her own identity again. But the people that will benefit mostly from this film are the likes of our daughters, our brothers, our sisters. And she has taken the stand for all of us, and she's an incredible woman.
Yeah, and that takes its toll as well. It's not easy to do what she does, but she really is motivated from a place of trying to make a difference in the world and affect change.
Thank you very much.
Agus Sinead, that's it. That's the final pitch in this year's International Pitching Forum. A wide variety of content, a wide variety of options, and a difficult task for our ever-alert judging panel. Don't forget the fact that you don't win this doesn't mean that these people with the large checkbooks can't be interested in your project on an individual basis. And don't forget to keep thinking and keep coming up with ideas. It's a unique chance to see pitching done in different ways for different projects, and we're always learning all the time. The winner will be announced this afternoon at the prize giving. Thank you all for getting up so early. Thank you all for being such a good audience. Enjoy the rest of the festival, but don't enjoy it too much. Slán.